Welcome to the Bridging the Generation podcast. I am Malak Arif, and today I have another special guest. Now, before we even get started, I'm gonna need you guys to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and please comment down below. Let's get this engagement up. It's very important as far as this YouTube algorithm, and I'm gonna give you guys a chance to do that right now. All right, let's go. Let's get into it now. Coming to the BTG podcast, I have none other than the DC ambassador himself. This brother, you may have seen him on CNN. You may have seen him on BET, read about him in the Washington Post and other, news outlets. He's also written a New York Times bestseller, Slug, the Life of a Boy and growing up under mass incarceration. And this brother has been doing a lot of work in the community for over 21 years. So with all that said, it is an honor to introduce to the BTG podcast, the one, the only Mr. Tony Lewis Jr. Let's go. Generation Podcast. I'm your host, Malak Arif, and today we have a very special guest, and I'm talking about DC Ambassador. You may have seen this brother on BET. You may have seen this brother, read about this brother in the Washington Post, CNN. He has been making his rounds the past 4 or 5, damn near decade, man. In not just in the area, but in the United States and abroad. So with all that said, it's an honor to have the one, the only Mr. Tony Lewis Jr. What's going on, brother?
What's up, bro? How you?
Man, I'm glad to have you. First of all, man, when I first started this platform, I said, man, how can I incorporate, brothers that's as impacted, I feel that's as impactful as you have been in the community, because this platform basically is called Bridging the Generation, and it primarily focuses on the arts. Right. But I feel you're like a cultural icon, and not just in the community, but you have also been very influential nationwide. So, this is an honor for me, brother, to have you here on the platform, man. I got to say that one more time, man. Brother.
I appreciate that, man. And thanks for having me.
Thank you. Nah, it's nothing. Well, I'm not going to hold you. We about to go right. I hope you got a little time. I know you're a busy man. I'm not going to hold you. I'm not trying to keep you here all night.
No, we hear those. That's why we here. So,
all right. So here we go. Let's start off. For those who not familiar with you, let's start from the beginning. Like, you're originally from right here in Washington D.C., Northwest, Hanover place. Talk about that. Growing up in the D.C. area during the like most people say, the crack epidemic. What was that like?
Yeah. So I'm 41, so I'm a little. I came into being a little before, I guess, what people would consider the crack epidemic. I was born in 1980, but I'm on Hanover. Well, Hanover was like, at that time, right, the first open-air drug market in Washington, particularly around cocaine.
Right.
If my father, my uncles, their friends, were players in that, and right. But obviously 1986 is about where if we look at typically crack epidemic is from 86 to 96, so from 6 to 16, right? So growing up in this community, in this city, in a time where we were the murder capital, crack capital, and really the difficulties in navigating that. When I was around 9 years old, my father went to prison for his role in a drug conspiracy, subsequently received the sentence of life without the possibility of parole, and that was 32 years ago. You know, that event was you know, incredibly traumatic. You know, changed my life forever. You know, and you know, it's really tough. You know, growing up in that time though, where you know my peers died and went to prison. Um, you know, addiction, violence, drugs, all of those things that
Right.
people hear about or read about. You know, I grew up in, and by the grace of God, I was able to, you know, navigate my way through, man. You know, really that really framed sort of my activism, my my service, because ultimately, you know, my work has really been about helping my people, you
Right.
know, and not just so obviously sort of people that were in my immediate orbit, but then,
Okay.
you know, as I was able to impact them, you know, my work and my impact sort of just grew more broadly,
No doubt.
and sort of like trying to, you know, in a summary, that's sort of like how, you know, I became the man that I am today.
Okay, let's go back. So let's stay here for a second because you know, you touched on a lot of different things, and I really want to go. I want to go into detail on a couple of things. Not
Okay.
you know, not
Ain't nowhere we can't go. So, you know,
yeah. So let's start
real
right
quick.
here. Like, you know, we again, you're the son of Tony Lewis Sr. So, you know, when did you realize like your life is it's a little bit different than a lot of your peers? Like, when did you realize like, you know, like some of the dealings of your father? The reason why I asked that question, like, when did you realize like my father, he doing something a little bit, you know, it's a little different than what a lot of other my peers' parents do, you know. Yep.
Yeah, that I mean that's a good question. I mean, but like coming from around here, um, yeah, men. That's what I didn't know men that did other things, right?
Right.
So all the men that grew up, you know, that's and again, I understand sort of the like uniqueness of my upbringing, but like really, it wasn't until I got around people that wasn't from around here that I realized, like, man. But I went to Catholic school, right? So, like my classmates that came from very sort of stabilized middle class
Right.
neighborhoods, I knew. So I still knew early on, but that didn't come from around here, like because in my neighborhood, you know, all of my friends, parents, and all of my
Right.
other men in my life were
Yeah.
involved in the lifestyle in some capacity. But at the same time, I even within that though, I did know my dad was different, right? He had a different influence, a different impact. The way people responded to him was different
Right.
than everybody else. So I
No
did
doubt.
know that. But as it
Yeah.
relates to sort of seeing the difference in like that he maybe, you know, did something different than like the quote
Right.
unquote normal person, you know.
Yeah.
You know, again, we went to jail when I was 9, but like my sense of awareness was very heightened at a young age, a very mature kid. And
Right.
like, damn, like yeah, we everybody don't got like 4 or 5 different cars or like everybody parent. And then, you know, also my parents, my parents had me, my mom was 19, my father was 18.
Okay.
Um, and like at my school, my classmates, their parents were a bit older than my parents.
Right.
That was always something that sort of was like very like
Right.
distinctive to me. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying?
I got
That
you.
my parents were very so much younger
Right.
than like my classmates' parents. And yeah, just how they showed up, you know, was different.
Right.
But yeah, man, I think very early on though, I realized that like we were like different than a lot of people. You know,
Okay.
even just how when we went places, right? How
Right.
again, how people responded to us was different. You know what I'm saying? It's not a whole
Right.
lot. I don't know what to compare it to, right? But like in that time, um, in the subculture that we come from, there
Right.
was not a you know, there wasn't too many people more like notable or
Right.
had more celebrity than them. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? I don't know, we don't really got a reference for that in today's world. I mean, it
No
would
doubt.
be sort of a you know, an athlete
Or an
or a
artist,
rapper
a rapper,
or
or
an
something.
artist,
Right.
something like
Right.
that. But
Mm-hmm.
then we didn't even have that.
Right.
They were more important than the bullet or the
Yeah.
red
Yeah.
skin. You
Yeah.
know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
They
They were
were.
very key at that
Like
time.
I said,
To
I
your point,
vividly.
to how you
Yeah.
framed your
Yeah.
question, you know, that
Mm-hmm.
those people were more important in that time in DC we grew up in
That's a
than
fact.
anybody that was on TV or anybody that plays sports, you know.
No doubt, no doubt. So look, I remember, like I said, your father, he was incarcerated, like you said, in 1989. So talk about like what type of father was he? I've watched a lot of interviews with you. I've done my research, my due diligence, but I feel a lot of times people don't, people. I don't hear a lot of people ask you that question because we see the relationship that you have with him, and we see this campaign that you have with him, which we gonna talk about later. But what type of father was he, as far as, growing up?
A very hands-on, present, doting father. I mean, I think for me to fight for him like I do, and you said we'll talk about that later, but like to be able to survive 32 years of incarceration, that foundation had to be incredibly strong, right? And that ain't just, I think it's unfortunate though that like when somebody is labeled a drug dealer or whatever the case may be, and God forbid labeled a drug kingpin, then any other positive connotations go out the window. People just can't see that. But yeah, my dad was somebody who did not have a father, so I think that was very important to him to be very involved in my life and to spend a whole lot of time with me and to groom me and raise me. And that first 9 years allowed for him to even do that from prison. You know what I mean? So, and even to this day, he's my biggest fan, if you will, my advisor, my source of encouragement, so on and so forth. So yeah.
Now, like I said, now when he got incarcerated, we talk about 1989, which is was that 32 years ago.
32 years ago.
So talk about that. How impactful was that, on the Lewis family? Because I believe you're his only child, if I'm not mistaken.
Only child, yeah. Me, him, and neither my parents. I'm the only child. Both of my parents. You know what I'm saying? I'm the only child, and it was life altering. Incredibly traumatic. Everything changed, literally, including my mother. My mother's, subsequently she would start to battle severe mental illness. I mean, something that I still deal with today. With the irony that like he's still locked up and she's still going through that. You know what I'm saying? And so for a little boy, who had two parents that were like, an abundance of love, there, to have that just like turn upside down, was something that was like indescribable in so many ways. And also like not having any siblings, there was no buffer. Like I went through what they went through. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit, because that when you mention your mother, that's a lot of people may not know this about me, but I too, my mother just recently passed back in 2017, but I dealt with, thank you, brother. But I also dealt with, my mother suffered from paranoid schizophrenia my entire life. I don't recall when my mother was per se, in her normal right mind. Was a great mother, the greatest mother on earth when she was on her medication. So, I say that to say this, how was it dealing with that? Not just the trauma of having your father removed from the household, but also having to deal with a mother that was, paranoid schizophrenic. And was there any body in the community that helped you, filter through a lot of that,
Yeah, well, I'm gonna start with your last question. No, but I had my grandmother.
My bad. I hope that wasn't a loaded question, man. I know that was a lot.
No. I respect that question, bro. I just wanted that's the easy part of the question when you ask, was anybody in the community to help? And no, but I had my grandmother, and in many ways she had me. You know what I'm saying? So that we sort of tag team the situation. It was and it still is. And I ain't gonna say was, right, because again, that's we're talking about something that's like done with or over, and it's not. Like it's the most stressful, painful thing, the most helpless feeling in the world. You see my mom sort of digressing, the different stints back and forth over St. Elizabeth through the years, and especially when I was younger, and just not understanding, right? We live in a time where we're much more aware of mental
Mental
health,
illness. Yeah.
right? Mental
Yeah.
illness is much
Yeah.
more, is less stigmatized. We talk about it more, but in that time, it wasn't. And it was like,
Right.
nobody really knew what to call it. You had the shame piece. You had people
That's
who
a
saying,
fact.
"Go, you need to go to the church,"
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever it
Yeah.
was,
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, like going to visit my mother over St. Elizabeth was much more uh, uh, traumatic because it was unfamiliar. Then going to
Right.
see my father in prison, like I had never went to see him in prison
You're right.
before
Right.
he
Right.
went, but I
Oh
went to
no, I
see
know.
other people.
I know
You know what I'm
exactly
saying?
because my mother was over there too back in
Yeah,
like the mid late '90s. So I
yeah, same here, man.
yeah
Same
yeah
here. At different points, and it's like, having them see your mother look at you and say you not you, and I had to some night sleep with my room barricaded so she went. You just
bruh.
never knew. It was a lot. I know,
Yeah
and
yeah
it's a very unique experience that if you
yeah
have not went through it, and particularly when you're talking about not your aunt, not your uncle, not your cousin, we talking about your mother, right?
your mother.
So it's
Right
a
right
whole other thing. Yeah, like, but clearly now, right? Like even in my father's, but now I'm a father, right? So I got two little girls that, you want them to have a relationship with their grandmother, but yet you can't control what could happen.
I,
You know what I'm saying? Like
bruh,
it's my
I
role to
couldn't
protect
even.
them.
I used to like want to have my two kids. I'm a father as well, and just knowing because of my mother's condition, she's not even in a position. My mother never even watched my children.
Yeah, man. Same. Yeah, we in
So
the same boat, bro.
yeah yeah
Brother, we in the same exact boat. I cannot. That can't happen, and it's hard. Like to even
right
so many decisions that I got to make that other people have no idea. And then
right
then you also deal with like when people on the outside looking in and they don't
yeah
understand,
yeah
right? Because their lens, and I respect,
yeah
like I
yeah
understand,
yeah
their lens is just from like how they look at their mother, or if
right
you
right
can't imagine if your mother was in that position because she's
right
not.
right yeah
Because it's
yeah
not like you're not talking to somebody that's always in like a rational state.
hmm
And so I can't put my children in that situation. Then there's some things that like, as what it happened to me, like I had to deal with it because she's my mother, but like it's things you can't unsee or unhear. You
right
know what I'm
right.
saying? And
Do you think
but
a
yeah,
lot
with
of
all that,
this? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no,
I didn't
I
mean
was
to
just
interrupt.
gonna say, no, no worries. I'm just saying, with all that being said, it's just something that it's the hand I've been dealt, and
Right.
gotta
Yeah.
deal with it. Yeah.
You think not to stay on this topic too long? 'Cause we got some other things to cover, but you know, do you think a lot that was triggered by the incarceration of your father? Because from what I've learned about in regard to my mother, my
Mm-hmm.
mother had a brother that killed himself back in 1977, and then she had a husband that died like 2 years prior to that. So
Mm-hmm.
I never got
Mm-hmm.
the mother that everybody used to talk about. Hey, oh, Grace was this and this. So do you like what was it like? Prior,
Yeah.
to that, just in a little detail. I know you. I know you.
Nah, yeah,
You
like
know.
my mom, man. I think, as I think about it's actually a great question because I think about that a lot. And, I think the stability that like my father's success brought
Right.
financially and all that, like it was enough to like mask some of this, but I think some of it was already there. It wasn't like, but
Right.
obviously him going to jail was like the straw that broke the camel's back,
Mm,
if you will. But
right.
not only that, right shortly after he got incarcerated, we got carjacked, and like that was like, you know, because it solidified all that paranoia, right? That
Right.
already pre-existed, and then his lifestyle would attribute a certain
Right.
level of paranoia. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
But once he went to prison, and then we got carjacked, and then our whole lifestyle was just different. We background away, like we're just different, and
Right.
I think all those things combined, it really pushed it over the top. But I don't. It was, as I think back on things that predated his incarceration, and the way things that she would do or say to me or whatever the case may be. Some of those things were there, but I mean, the love she showed me, the attention, a lot of my ability to dream, and
Right.
my what I was as a student, all that stuff is directly related to how she raised me. You know what I'm
That's
saying?
what's up.
Yeah, man. But
Yeah. Yeah.
things definitely, um, went on a downward spiral, after he went in, for sure.
Mm. So look, let's move forward a little bit. So now I know you end up going to Gonzaga. Was you up there when Alvin Brown was up there?
Yeah. Al
Yeah,
Brown a year ahead of me. Yeah, for
yeah,
sure. It's my
yeah,
man.
man. That was my man. So anyway,
Oh, good dude.
yeah. So talk about because the neighborhood that you grew up in, Hanover Place, the neighborhood school was Dunbar. So what was that transition like? Because I had no idea that you went to a private school up until like maybe 10 years ago. So
Sure.
what was that transition going from whatever school I don't know what school you went to like prior to that,
But I always went. I ain't never go to public school though.
Oh shit.
But I ain't never go to public school. You know what I'm saying? I went to Catholic school my whole life.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
So talk about that.
I couldn't go to public school. I mean, I could have, I guess, but you know what I'm saying? Like, for early on, like, it was reasons why I went to. So
that makes sense. Makes sense. I get it. I get it.
But at the same time, I ain't go to no my elementary or element K through 8th grade wasn't like Gonzaga. You know what I'm saying? Wasn't no white people at my school. You know what I'm saying? And then the neighbor, like you said, like the neighborhood I live in Gonzaga, 3 blocks from my house, but it's a world away. In terms of
You had. I remember back then, and you had Sursum quarters, you had Temple courts. Yeah. So it was crazy. I always like that the fact that Gonzaga was like that close to all of that, man. But still, most people in that area went to Dunbar. So
because I didn't even know it was crazy. It's like I literally I remember my orientation. I didn't know Gonzaga was. This is the crazy part. Like, nah, I promise you,
that's crazy.
I ain't even like being funny. Matter of fact, it's wild because part of like my mother's situation contributed to me going there because like a rational person, it wouldn't even been considered because we couldn't pay for the shit, right? We couldn't afford it, right? So it's like, we struggling to even pay my tuition at my.
I didn't want to get in. I didn't want to get into all of that, man. But I'm not gonna lie, that I did think about that. Like that's interesting, man. Like how were you able to,
But I remember, when you were in 8th grade in Catholic school, they ask you, where you want to go. You got to pick 2 schools or whatever. And I remember a nun in my school named Sister Cooper was telling my mother, that like the math or Curl or McNamara, like she was like those schools might not be challenging enough for me. And she was like, St. Albans or Gonzaga probably would be, the 2 most expensive joints in the. But of course, God bless her soul, she don't know what's up. Like she don't even, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. But I remember, and that's where they, that's where they apply. Because I'm trying to go to Dunbar. To your point, I'm going to Dun like all the homies. And I'm happy about that too. And I wound up getting in Gonzaga. I got in both of them. I wound up going to Gonzaga, right? Okay. And like I was saying,
so you got into St. Albans as well?
I got in both. Yeah. I got in both. I got in both. And I remember going to orientation. And we going down there. And I'm saying, no, this John right down the street. I had no idea, like crazy. I'm touring my life. And then, but what was wild was the lack of preparation. Like everybody who was there had went to summer school. They do like this pre-program. So again, I'm coming in John. The wildest part about Gonzaga was the black dudes that went there because I never met black dudes that came from the type of communities or that type of stability, right? Right. So to see black guys that had grew up with the white boys that grew up living in their neighborhoods, you know what I'm saying? And it wasn't a lot of us, period, right? It was some classes. I was the only black dude. It might be 2 of us in a class, you know what I'm saying? So, but still, just to sort of see that, but to have that experience early on, like from 14 years old, really did so much to prepare me for the rest of the world. You know what I'm saying? Like,
no doubt.
But I hated it initially, bro. Like it was tough. It took me like 3 years now, for real. It took me a long time.
Right.
Because it was just nobody there like me.
Yeah.
And so you said like an Al Brown or something. They play sports though. You gotta think on I ain't play no sports. I ain't do no extra. I ain't do none of that. And I really was from the street. You feel what I'm saying? Not just like that's my father, whatever. That's his,
Right.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Because
came from the same neighborhood.
Hannibal was still wild as shit back then.
At first, that's how it's
Yeah.
way the whole neighborhood, like the
Yeah.
whole anywhere around here. You look, if you stand in our neighborhood and you look, you know, 7 block radius, north, south, east, or west.
Yeah. Oh, I remember.
You can call it off. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Like, yeah, for real
Yeah.
though. And
Yeah.
I don't say this like this ain't sticking my chest. It's the reality of
Nah,
like.
no doubt.
And I was outside. You know what I'm saying? Like anybody who grew up in this neighborhood to tell you
Right.
that, and you know, and to be trying to academically, bro, Gonzaga is not a joke,
And
right?
talk about that,
Right?
man, because
Yeah.
like I said, you end up going to UDC, but what what like motivated you? What inspires you during this
I
time,
wasn't trying to
man?
die, Holmes. Like, listen, it wasn't. I don't know. It just
Because
really
there's
was
so
like,
many obstacles, man, that you had,
hey,
and that's one of the things that really stand out to me about your story, because everywhere that you turned, it seemed like there's obstacles, man. But how were you able to persevere and pierce through all the bullshit?
man, grace of God, man. That's all I can equate it to, bro. Because it really was like, it wasn't even like I wasn't trying. Like I wanted to make my grandmother proud. I wanted to make my father proud. I even my mother. I wanted to make. You know what I'm saying? Like I always, they set the standard for me. You know, the
Right.
love and respect I had for them. You know, but at the same time, you know, man, I'm from around here. Like this, it
Yeah.
wasn't. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It
Yeah.
wasn't no blueprint. It wasn't no. I couldn't come in the house and get no help with my homework. You know what I'm saying? Like I really, I don't get a chance to talk about this enough. But like I really was up against almost insurmountable, and not to mention at that same time, my homies we beefing and all that around here.
Yeah.
Like it
Yeah.
was serious business. It was serious business,
Yeah.
like for
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
And I got to go down there and compete with them on that level every
Yeah.
day. You know, and I made it through. The one thing about that, once
And
I
they don't even
did,
know. They don't even know like the
they
shit
don't got a
like you.
clue. They don't
Yeah.
got a clue. They don't have a clue.
Yeah.
Like for real, they don't have a clue. You understand what I'm saying? I'm going to funerals and shit, then I'm coming. So y'all don't even understand. People be shooting at us. You
Man,
know
take
what I mean?
a special type of individual, man. To
Yeah,
that's
well,
all I
I
gotta say,
appreciate
man.
that, man. Like, and I really did that. Like, and not only that, like, in the same time, my father locked up 3,000 miles away. You know, serving life. He in California. My mother
Right.
back and forth over St. Elizabeth. Like, I'm done with this shit every single
Right. Right.
day. You know what I mean? And then gotta go down there and compete too, because that's what that joint is. It's competitive. It ain't they
Right.
not holding your hand. Like
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
you sink or swim.
Yeah.
But when I ran that gauntlet, you know, and I finished. I ain't want to do. That's why even like college, you know what I'm saying. I ain't. You know what I mean. I ain't. I applied to Howard, and that was it. That was because this girl I was dealing with at the time. You know what I'm saying. And I got into Howard, and I
Right.
went to orientation with Howard, and then just didn't go back. You know what I'm saying. Wind up taking like a year off, just running around and in the
Okay.
street, is you know what I mean. And
Yeah.
then I wind up going to enrolling in UDC.
Yeah. You
Yeah,
magnum cum laude, man.
yeah. Once I got up there, I
Yeah.
always was a good student though. You feel what I'm saying? Always, um, but simultaneously, I got a job doing, uh, uh, like peer to peer,
Okay.
what now we call violence interruption. But I was like a junior role leader,
Mm.
and that
So
really was saving my life for real.
would you say like would you say like around that time, like is that when like this pivot as far as what what the direction that you decided to go, it started around that time. What led to that, like
So
to
a friend of my uncle and my father, he worked for Parks and Rec,
okay.
dude, Fat Rob, man, and he
Okay.
was like, man, listen, your grandmother, they want, man, because I'm just hanging out, just
Yeah. Yeah.
around, all type of rumors flying, you know what I'm saying, about what I'm doing, who I
Yeah.
got doing what for me. It's just a
Right.
lot,
Right.
some of it true, some of it's not, you know what I'm saying, for real. And
Yeah.
and my grandmother, she was like, Fat Rob will get you a job or whatever. I'm like, all right, cool. And me and him
Okay.
had a real good relationship anyway, you know what I'm saying? So
And you at this time you at UDC, right?
no, I ain't at UDC yet. It's like right at the same. Well, this is all happening at the same time. The
Okay.
job and UDC happened like at the same time,
Oh, okay. Okay.
basically. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mm.
I'm like 19, 20 when this happened.
Okay.
And but I got a job, and then I like fell in love with the work. You know what I'm saying? And what that did though, that also made school started to make sense. And you know what's crazy about UDC, and I don't know if it's like that now, but at that time was a lot of older people going back to school because
Right.
they
Right.
went into the workforce early, and they was hitting this ceiling because they didn't have a degree, right?
Right.
And so a lot of them poured into me just as simply as saying, a youngin, because I was like the only person college age in a lot of my classes.
Right.
And they would be like, man, traditional college age,
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, man, get it now. You know what I'm saying? So they was
Yeah.
making that make
Yeah.
sense. But then when I was, I was doing a little part-time thing with the violence interruption, outreach work, or whatever. And it started to make things make sense. But the whole time, like, I still don't have no ass. This was crazy. I still didn't have no
Wow.
aspirations. I'm just around. I'm
Mm.
gambling every day. I'm running around with my man. That's what I'm doing. And I'm like, but I'm just making my grandmother happy.
Right.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying? But just like bit by bit, I was falling more in love with the work, and then I almost got caught up in this federal indictment, and then that was like the joint that sort of like the
Mm.
light bulb, like, you know what I mean? Just from me being the people I was being around,
Right.
you know, I almost got knocked off, and it was like, damn, like I really,
Mm.
and that's how I sort of like poured myself into the work, and that's where
Yeah.
I feel like things started sort of like
Okay.
um really started to accelerate. You know what I mean? And you look up. It took me
Yeah.
4 years or whatever. I want to
Right.
graduate from EDC. Yeah.
Yeah. To see the reason, like, I asked that because, outside looking in, man, it would look like, this was always your aspiration
Yeah.
from,
Nah, not at
you know.
all. Nah, it wasn't. Nah. See, the one thing about my life, man, I never had the luxury or the privilege of forecasting or planning.
Right.
It's just not something that I had the luxury of doing.
Right.
And I really been just going along, just really following my
No
heart,
doubt.
like and
Mm.
up until this point. Like now, I'm in a position now where I'm just like maybe the last 3-4 years where I'm really starting to be more strategic and intentional and planning. I never lied. I didn't have that skill set because I couldn't.
Man,
I'm
that's
trying to
crazy.
get through the minutes, man, for real though. Like I'm trying to get through the minutes every single day. Like it really, and that's just not, that
You
ain't
you you
no,
you doing a hell of a job. You doing a hell of a job of
yeah,
displaying that, man, because you do it, you do that shit what they say effortlessly, so
yeah. I
effortless, man.
appreciate that, man.
And
Appreciate that.
my introduction to you was through my brother. Now I know you dealt with probably like thousands of individuals, so you may not remember. He said you used to call him Tree. His name was Mashawn. But
Yeah, I know Mashawn. And Mashawn was in my class. He was one of my students and shit
oh
on
shit, he
the
said you may not even remember him. He was like, man, don't
yeah,
even ask. He said, don't even ask. I was like, yeah, I said I'm gonna ask him anyway, man, because I remember when he was coming out of DC jail,
yeah,
and I was
yeah.
just
He
moving
was in
back home from
Project.
Atlanta.
Yeah,
So you
yeah,
remember? So
for
you
sure.
remember him?
Yeah, yeah, I remember him for sure.
Yeah. So that
Hey,
was my
tall, y'all
introduction.
looking like a little six foot
Yeah,
big. Yeah, straight up. Yeah,
you that man like 6'5", man.
yeah,
So
yeah.
but he was telling me about this program that he was in called Project Empowerment.
Project
So
Empowerment. Yeah.
tell me about how did you get involved in that program, and are you still involved in that?
Yeah, so when I was doing the roving leader work, um, I got introduced to
Excuse me.
Project Empowerment hiring, um, which is the Department of Employment Services. And
Right.
so, this lady who was a member of this little committee I was on, thought that I would be a good fit. So she
Mm-hmm.
introduced me, to the people there. I got an interview and they hired me.
Okay.
Um, and I was 25 when I started working over there. And though I thought that the work I was doing as a role
Yeah.
leader, doing outreach was like, I thought that was my calling. When I started doing reentry work, it was
Right.
just different. It really, and I was young. It
And
wasn't,
they see, and that's why I'm laughing. Like you probably wonder, like, what he laughing about? See that? I was just talking to my brother earlier, and please don't forget your train of thoughts. I want to just
nah, I'm cool.
interject for a
Yeah,
second.
sure.
I was just talking to my brother maybe like a couple of hours ago before this interview, and he was telling me, he was like, yeah, man. He was like, Tony was like 25 years old, but he was like teaching grown ass men that was coming home. He was like, man, he has this like this God given innate ability, man. Like it's it's this intangible that you just have, man. But he was telling me that was one of the things that stood out about you for being so young. He said 25. That was the age he mentioned. So, but go ahead real quick.
Nah, that's deep, man. Because for real though, I'm saying, and in that time, just if I don't know how much time we got, but I don't mean to be long-winded, but I think
take your time.
What's important about that is that, like, for real, I was 25. First of all, the average age of participant was like 37, right? That was the average age of the person in the class.
Man.
But on top of that, that was the average age. But you had people like 55, 60. You had people that watched me grow up. I'm 25.
Yeah.
And, you know what I'm saying? And
you telling me about that too.
For real. I'm talking about, and I'm talking people that just coming home from doing some 20s, 30 years in prison at that time, right? This 05, 06, 07, during that time or whatever. And and it's crazy because, like, but part of it was, and I again, like you, it's like that certain that it thing, like something you can't put your finger on.
Yeah, man.
But I think what was the most important to people was that people know that, like, I was serious, like, and I was unwavering, and it was genuine. I cared, like, I really cared about what happened to them. And when they learned more about who I was, and where I came from, and so for me to be in that position, it really spoke volumes to them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then every time you turn, like, it might be not everybody in the class, but it probably somebody in the class, like, nah, that's my man, or that's my little homie, or I know his father, I know his uncle, I know. So, like, it really solidified my message, right? Like, so I wasn't no random guy who was just like, it's a job, you know what I'm saying? So, and then, like, but so I remember at first I was like what they call a job coach, and then they started putting me in the classroom, and then like it really took a whole different trajectory once I got in the classroom, because, like, people would come to the program wanting to be in my class because the word would, like, spread, like, you gonna go to Project Empowerment. You need to
he told me that too.
You know what I'm saying? But like, but the beauty of it for me was always, like, sometimes though when I look up and then it might be somebody even my age or a little younger than me in the class. You know what I'm saying? And so there's nothing was like my delivery was different too. Like, we might be in there listening to, Jay-Z or watching like all this sort of outside the box type stuff.
You was kind of like, was able to bridge the gap.
Yeah, I was bridge the gap. You know what I'm saying?
No pun intended.
No pun intended. Like, I really was a tweener. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was connecting, and really what I didn't understand then that I understand now was, like, and to your other question, I don't work at Project Empowerment no more, but I absolutely work with Project Empowerment, and the people there, DOS, and people like Charles Jones. Now I work hand in hand with them in the work every day.
Hughes, she's still up there, Miss Hughes.
Yeah, Dr. Morris Hughes. She's the director. Yeah, she's the director of DOS. Yeah, absolutely, man. Good people, man.
No doubt.
And being able to, the Project Empowerment, I feel like is the most important program there is.
Doubt. Man, let me say this real quick, Tony, because I remember, like I said, when my brother came home, this is around 06, 07. It seemed like, man, I remember he was telling me, he was like, man, I don't know if I can do this shit, man. This shit hard. It's hard, but I fuck with, Mr. Lewis, man. I rock with Tony, man. And he was telling me, man, like, the dude, he was telling me, and I had no idea who you was. I know who your father was, but he was telling me, like, that was the incentive for him staying. You know what I'm saying? I don't remember how long he stayed and all that or whatever. But let me say this. That was like the pivot in my brother's life, man. And it seemed like since then, he just been on the straight and narrow. You know what I'm saying? He has, I don't want to put my brother business out there like that, but he, you know what I'm saying? He got in a little trouble, whatever, but he starting at that point in his life, man, he rebounded and he has never looked back. Just bought a house, working, doing good,
Like, I think sometimes
it started right then. It started then.
And like, man, and like when some people wonder, like, about sort of why, like, how my influence, is what it is, right? And a lot of times people who only know a person from, through social media, they always equate it to like that kind of stuff. But like it's that though, bro. It's like these bonds that got created with people, real people, in a real way that people actually took the information, you know what I mean, and that connection and ran with it. You know what I mean? I can't even describe them same people like your brother and some of your people. I don't know if they know what they did for my life, and in the same way, right? Because it really, even at that point, I still didn't have things figured out. But when you start to see, like, man, you can have an impact on somebody. You know what I mean? It started to really make you more cognizant of the steps you taking and who you around, and you know what I mean? It really helped again save my life. You know what I'm saying? As we poured, it wasn't just that, it wasn't one way in terms of like, as I was pouring into them, they don't even know they was pouring back into me by letting what I was sharing resonate and moving their lives forward. It's like, oh, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, man, I'm eternally grateful, man. So, and thank you for sharing that though. But like, I see people every day, bro.
He was like, man, he's like, man, he said, man, you know what? He might not even remember me, man. I said, because he deal with so many.
But you see what I say? I don't take none of that. Like, them ain't chance encounters. You see, when you say what you say, you see what I said. I don't beef. I don't. It ain't because it ain't that for me. I didn't. But to his point, I didn't deal with thousands of people, bro. My wife said that, like, how you remember everybody? And even if I don't, you know what I'm saying? I don't be forgetting people like that.
You got a memory like an elephant, man.
Yeah. It's true though, man. But it's like, but those exchanges, right?
Yeah.
It's really that personal for me. You know what I'm saying? It ain't just like, oh, here go another group. You know what I mean? Here go another guy.
That stood out, man. That stood out because I'm like, man, you only a year older than me. So I'm like, man, how's a young brother? I never heard of anything like that. A young brother running a program like that. That was like the first time to my knowledge of anybody being involved in something like that. So, right then and there, man, that's when I became, I hate to use this term fan, but that's when I became a supporter of, everything Tony Lewis Jr., man. That's when it started right there.
Yeah, them days, that's really my, the role and leader stuff, and then Project Empowerment, and at that time too, when I was there, the American Gangster, the Rayful American Gangster came out
Cornell Jones.
And the Cornell Jones came out in 08. All that was my time.
Damn, that was that long ago?
Yeah, man. Yep.
Where did time go, man? It
seemed
like yesterday.
I'm trying to tell you, man. It's crazy. It's crazy. But that's when sort of my more people, like, a lot of times I look at the work we do and, working with the population that we serve, even to this day, it's like it was clandestine. Like, the broader community ain't really care or know about, that work. So them programs actually help people to see, like, that it was work being done and reentry, again, criminal justice reform, all that stuff is a
Let's
thing.
Let's get into that. Hold on,
not back then.
Yeah,
that wasn't a thing back then. You feel what I'm saying? We was doing the work, but it wasn't no thing. You feel me? It wasn't. Nobody was checking for that.
No, that's a fact. Then. That is a fact. So let's get into that. That segue into my the next topic, man. This is the last topic that's been huge the past like you said, the past decade or so, social justice reform. So what would you say to those who are like losing hope in a lot of these bills getting passed? Because, I know recently, you had the prison gerrymanderings bill, the sentence modification, the drug-free zones. Those bills were passed, but then you had bills like the recreational marijuana bill, the compassionate parole bill. Those bills didn't get passed. So, talk a little bit about that. What's some of the improvements that you have seen, and what do you think, like, some of the things that we can, some of the things that will help us move forward?
Oh man, that's
I know that's another loaded question.
But I mean, I would tell people, listen, man, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You gotta keep fighting, keep plugging away. I mean, we've made progress. You know what I'm saying? We made a shit ton of progress. But again, it's more work to be done. And you can't get satisfied. I think what people got to understand though in this work though too, especially with the advent of social media and things of that nature, is that people got to understand that the work still got to be done in person. You know, and I think a lot of times people think you get enough traction, if things go viral, that's the answer to everything.
Things has changed.
Yeah,
they looked at it like, oh, everything has changed. Everything good now.
So now what happens is that's the goal versus actually the important, like touching people one-on-one and touching people in their space, in their community, and doing it consistently. I think that the school of activism that I come from, that was the most important thing. Not what you see in your device that you hold in your hand. And so I think if we get back to doing more things and doing community building and organizing, we can get all that stuff passed. You know what I'm saying? But it's going to take that. And again, people got to come out to the polls. People got to lobby. People gotta, I think also too, man, people gotta run for office. I mean, like people gotta get involved. It can't just expect change without you putting the work in. You know what I'm saying? And you gotta understand that also, because that's on the other side of the coin. People that if there is somebody who, if it's like an opposing team to these things, they're putting in that work. They're out in their community. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. You don't see it because you're not in the community, or you don't. But they're doing the things to help offset what we. You know what I'm saying? So I think people got to understand that. But we got so much more work to do. I'm locally and nationally. You know what I'm saying? But I think we're in a good space. We just got to keep plugging along, man. Keep pushing, trying to move the needle.
See, the reason why I asked that, because I remember, I was watching an interview with you, and you brought up, I don't remember who it was with, but it was a great it was a great topic, and it was related to what we're talking about now. But a lot of these these legislations and things of that nature, and laws or what have you, it's kind of like it's incentivized for them to keep things the way that they are. And I remember you bringing that up. So, because I remember you saying, like, a lot of the prison beds, like they need to be filled, and that also affects like the justice system and how police do their job. So what I'm saying is, there's an incentive to keep the things, the status quo is what I'm basically saying.
Yeah, sure.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
It is, though. I mean, you got to think, particularly, I think in that what you referencing is particularly, we were talking about like private prisons.
There we go.
Which is a very small percentage of the prisons, but in the sake of at least private prisons, the contract said that they had that be 90% filled, and so on the back end, the police had to, lock people up so that they can go to these places. But just in general, we are within a system, right? So one thing feeds the other. You know what I mean? One thing feeds the other, and we talking about if you look at where prisons are. You know what I'm saying? When you look at the type of communities that prisons are in.
Rural areas.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Rural areas where in a lot of cases there used to be something else there. Whether it was a coal mine, whether it was a steel mill, whether it was a factory, right? And so when those things left, what I mean?
Kind of like replace that economy.
I mean, it didn't it ain't kind of do it. It did, exactly. You know what I'm saying? So, it's very interesting how, this whole the justice system as it exists today has created economic opportunities for one group of people, and then there's another group of people that feeds it. You know what I'm saying? So, and even if you look at even a place like Washington, where 95% of the people that are incarcerated in the city look like you and I. 95%.
Yeah.
I mean, once upon a time in the DC we grew up in, that wasn't so crazy because it was, 70% of people that lived here look like you and I.
Right.
But now you look 45% of people Black. And the reality of it, even with that, right? The reality of that, probably 25% of that are native Blacks. And 95% of the people incarcerated, that ain't all Blacks. That's Blacks from DC.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
So I totally get it.
25% of the population you know what I mean?
No, because they just had a like a recent poll where they said like only 40% of the African of DC population is African American compared to when we was younger. I believe it was like roughly like 75%,
Yeah, that's what I'm
77%.
saying. It's about 45%
Yeah,
that are African American, right?
yeah.
But out of that 45%, only probably 25% or 20% of that is Native. And what I'm
Mm,
saying, the 95% of the people that's locked up, that's Native blacks. That ain't all black. So maybe only 20% of the District of Columbia population is
mm.
responsible for 95% of the prison population. You know what I'm saying? And the
Damn.
same thing with
Yeah.
victims of homicide victims.
Hmm.
95% of that African American. You know what I'm saying? So, but when you look at unemployment, you look at homelessness, you look at food insecurity, any of the things that
Right.
any of the ills
Right.
is represented almost totally
People that
by, you know
exactly.
what I'm saying? And
Hmm.
so that's where the work got to be done. I mean, we got a $18 billion budget in the city. You know, everybody else is economically, even our brown brothers and sisters are doing incredibly well in this city. And so we got work to do, to fill in the gaps,
Right.
to ensure that access to opportunity is there for everybody. You know what I mean? Because I don't think none of us can be okay with the current state of things as it relates to Black Native DC
Right.
residents, man. You know what I'm saying? So, um, that was our whole push about DC Native Day and all that. The people from here become more centered
Hmm.
in how things are unfolding, and
Yeah.
the key to peace and the key to safe public safety, all that is through economics. You know what I mean?
So what would you say to, a lot of people who, who say that this gentrification of Washington D.C. is a good thing? What would you, is there any pushback like from your perspective? Because
Uh,
I notice a lot has changed the past 15, 20 years, and there's
no
pros and
doubt.
cons. There's pros and
Yeah,
cons, but I would say, in my opinion, matter of fact, I would rather hear your opinion. I'm curious to see how you feel, because just even in your neighborhood, when I just drove by, Hanover in North Carolina, I'm like, wow, this looks totally different
yeah.
from when I used to walk down here to go to the KFC over there by North
Florida
Capitol,
Avenue.
Florida
Yeah,
Avenue.
Florida Avenue.
I used to
Yeah.
work at McDonald's when I was like 15.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
so yeah, so
Yeah.
just talk about that, the gentrification in DC, and how do you feel about that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. I just know that it's something that it ain't no going back, right? So for me, as a leader, I feel like my responsibility has been trying to figure out again, how do we foster more inclusion? Because I'm not mad at it.
Right.
I'm mad at only because we ain't included in it,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
You understand what I'm
Exactly.
saying? And
That's the
so,
only problem I have with it.
yeah, like erasure, it shouldn't be necessary for us to be erased for development to happen, right?
Right.
And I think the push has been, to remove us
And our culture.
in our culture. Like you can't. That's the part that I have an incredible, issue with. Um, but I feel like it's also a golden opportunity for us or people that come from where we come from, to get a slice of the pie. You
No
know what I'm
doubt.
saying?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's not just gonna trickle down, right? That has to be, again, it has to be intentional, right? You gotta want people to be a part of the progress. And you gotta plan for that, right? You gotta really build people into the process in order for that to happen. And that has not happened enough yet, you know. Um, I hope that we've made enough noise, enough alliances, enough relationships where we starting to see that more. And I've seen
Right.
evidence of that. But we got to be bold. You know what I'm saying? We got to be bold. There's no way that you know people that, again, born and raised here feel like they in a nightmare, and people from all over the world flock here to chase their dreams. Like, it just makes no sense.
Yeah.
And so I'm
Yeah.
not mad at those people for
Right.
doing that, but I do feel like the homegrown folks should have a shot at those as similar opportunities. And right, and it's going to take probably a little more work to make that happen. But
Right.
I think
Right.
that is worth that investment, because if we invest in people the way we've invested in infrastructure, it only can help all of us, right?
Mm.
Like you got more people, you create more taxpayers, you create safer communities, and people gotta understand something, that whatever you hear about how DC was, or the times when, but it was a reason. It wasn't just because,
Yeah,
right? It was a lack of
it was
it
by
was a lack of
design.
opportunity. It was a lack of opportunity then.
Yeah,
You know what
yeah,
I'm saying? And
yeah.
then that's why you see murders in the city up 25%. So, but it's only happening to us. But the population where you see these murders and this violence, it's the same thing.
Right.
People that are in low income communities, people that do
Exactly.
not have access to opportunity. So like, you
Right.
know what I mean?
Yeah,
And you ain't
yeah.
never
Go
you
figure.
never gonna see no peaceful poor community. And especially now where you can look across the street and see affluence and wealth. What do you think I'm supposed to do? I look, you know what I'm saying? Like I
Right,
don't know
right.
what people think. You know what I mean? You think I don't want that?
Poverty. I remember you once saying like, "There's never been a. You're never going to have unity when you have poverty and
Can't.
prosperity. They can't coexist."
They can't coexist. Isn't that you just show me where? I tell people all the time, show me in the history of humanity, right?
Yeah,
Where?
yeah.
Where that exists. And you also not gonna see a situation too. I think we've done a lot of trying to like save children, and I which I'm all for, right? But like,
Right.
show me where you save kids without saving adults. Just
That's a
show
fact.
me.
Yeah,
Just show me.
yeah,
Show me
yeah.
where the adults perish and the children do amazing. Just show me where that happens in large numbers. That's an
Nah, that's
impossibility.
that's 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 true.
You know what I
I
mean?
realize that. Yeah,
But we
yeah.
want to build. We're gonna do all that. We're gonna build a pretty school. We're gonna do direct all that. But that don't. We gotta build community. We gotta build family. You feel what I'm saying? So like,
Exactly.
but why I'm hopeful though. Again, with a city with almost close to $18 billion budget, um, obviously we need the private sector to be more open to hiring people that have been formerly incarcerated, so on and so forth. But we now have the ability to really invest in people, and I hope we getting it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because
And
that's
then
what
there's some
that.
accountability on us too to like people to
Right.
make better decisions.
Hmm.
But when that hope is there, when I know that I can do something different, you know what I mean?
Right.
That changes the way I see myself and see my role in this. So
Right.
hopefully we'll get there.
How is it, these past 10, 15 years, how has it been like galvanizing like the community, how it feel like, is there ever like pressure or stress to continue this thing, is that because there's a lot of weight on you, brother, like when every time I turn around, you're out here, advocating something, that's conducive for our people, that's conducive for our community. And I'm like, man, even, for a brother, you're not me, we pretty much the same age, but I'm like, man, that's a lot. I look at it like, man, that's a lot of weight on a brother's shoulders. So does it ever get stressful just knowing that you have this, this torch, this load to carry, and so much going on.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. And then like it's even more like in terms of what I don't get a chance to talk about in terms of like the weight on me and like really dealing in life and death, you know? What's my work? I work in life and death, and uh, people depending on you and needing you to come to the rescue every day. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
also trying to be the best husband and father that I can be.
Yeah, we don't factor
Um,
that. We don't factor that part in.
so it's a lot. It's a
Yeah,
lot,
yeah.
man. But I've learned also that I know that I only can do what I can do, man. You know what I mean? I
Yeah,
think
how do
I
you
try to.
balance that?
I
Like
try to
that's a hold on, slow down. I gotta ask that, man. I gotta ask because I
oh
follow you on
man,
Instagram, and I'm like, man, you got a beautiful family, by the way.
thank you, bro.
And I'm like, man, how do you balance that? Being a community activist and having two small daughters, a wife, and just the pressure of just advocating for all these things for our people, man. Like
Yeah,
you don't see that often from individuals today. You just don't like.
yeah. I've learned that you gotta prioritize your family. And again, man, you gotta do what you can and be okay with like, yo, I gave 110%. I did this, I did that. But also, I think being able to help empower others is like, they can take some of the load too, right? And
Right.
there's a joy in that, like seeing other people, be able to take some of the weight, and,
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and playing a role and helping them, evolve and because that's important too. I think too many times I think people want to be the only one and all that, and I'm not one of the people. Like Man, y'all can share, y'all can have some of this.
Where do you get that from, though, man?
You know,
But where do you get that from? Because I notice, man, like you really out here networking. Like it's so many people. You have so many different relationships, and even I'm starting to see like you talk more about galvanizing and putting things together as far as us starting to have relationships with the business community. But it's like you're in so many different pockets within the city. Where does that come from? Like
I don't know. I just just being able to understanding the importance of relationships. And being to have once upon a time I wouldn't build relationships. So me too, just continue to grow as a person. Personally and professionally, understanding that we can't do it alone. And but I think a lot of my relationships too develop really real organically too, right? So what it allows though is like that these relationships, these alliances are real. You know what I'm saying?
No doubt,
because
no doubt.
they're not based on nothing that's fake or that's it's something that's actually real in real relationships. And I think you attract who you are.
No doubt.
And so when your energy good, you'll find your tribe, or people will find you. People will seek you out. And just not like,
especially here in this city, man. Like you, you can't be fraudulent and nobody going to, what I mean?
It's too small.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? And I think though, like for me, understanding none of this is this has always been about helping the people for real though. So I think that's I've been in this stuff 21 years at this point, man. And I think what people respect about me really is like it's never about me really. I'm always trying to do something to help us. Again, it's not about being perfect. It ain't about that. I'm just saying that like honestly, it's never for me. It's really all people see that. People see that. And again, I look forward to creating more relationships, and it's been cool. I've also had a national impact on a lot of these issues too.
Oh, we about this.
So
every time you mention something,
it's a good segue.
Man, I swear, man. Every time you mention something that is almost like the segue to what I'm about to talk about now. So I want to talk about this book. You just recently released back in 2015, 2016, Slug, A Boy's Life in a Mass Age of Incarceration. And I read the book. I own the book. New York Times bestseller. So talk about the motivation behind this book, which I heard you feel it should be a required reading, and talk about some of the challenges getting this book released, because I think a lot of people don't know the backstory of this book.
Yeah, man. I mean, it was really I kind of the motivation to write it came from just like the type of exchanges I had in classes, like the one your brother was in, right? Me being able to sort of reach people that nobody else could reach, and understanding that like, yeah, that was like kind of uncanny and unique. And I felt like my message to those people all over the country I felt like only way I could do that because they ain't coming to Project Empowerment or to a program I'm a part of or whatever, that I wanted to package that up. But then the other part of it too was like this immense survivor's guilt that I always, dealt with, you know what I'm saying? Like, and really asking the question, like, how did this happen? You know what I'm saying? Like, how did I get here? You know what I'm saying? So sort of the combination of the two, and wrote the book between 2012 and 2013. The book and my oldest girl, they like twins really, because they kind of came into the world at the same time. But I didn't release the book until 2015 because I was shopping it for 2 years trying to get it published. You know what I'm saying? And I kept getting denied. Like, you know what I mean? Like, people just, at that time, being Black, trying to get a book published, you're not famous. They don't understand your reach, whatever. So the publishing houses told me no, man. It was crazy.
Yeah, because I remember when the book finally got released, man. I was so proud of you, brother, because I was like, man, I feel like this is going to put some eyes on our city, man. As far as being able to having more people be able to see a lot of the issues that we go through, and I love how in the book how you tackle a lot of the things that I feel like a lot of even community leaders, even in the city, I don't feel like they have been able to get that message out the way that you did with this book, in my opinion.
Yeah, nah, I appreciate that, and I think I agree with you. You know what I'm saying? But it's just because, like, for real, man, I think initially too, a lot of people thought the book was going to be about how much cocaine my father sold. It's just,
Right,
you
right.
know what I
Nah,
mean?
it's
You
not
know what I'm
even.
saying?
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
not, you know
It's
what I
not
mean?
even about that.
But it's
Yeah,
not at all. You
yeah,
feel me?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
I just thought that was, what people expected. But like, when people see, and again, it's my story, but it ain't. It ain't just my story. It's our story.
Our story, no
Just,
doubt. Yeah,
you know what I'm
yeah,
saying? It's our
yeah.
story, and so, I think that's why it's been so well received in the range of the book. Like, it ain't. It's for, if you're from a community like mine or not. It might even be
Right.
more for somebody who ain't from a community like ours, that can really, again, it's going to teach you, educate you about the humanity that exists where we from,
That's a
and
fact.
like the barriers that exist that ain't got nothing to do with us, in
Mm,
terms of us becoming who we who we potentially could become. But it's so many systemic things built in, and what does it really take to survive here? You know what I'm saying?
right, right.
And like, with people not really understanding fully, what I had to endure and go through, and for somebody to understand that, like, some things in your life may not get better, right?
Right.
But you have to. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
got to get
yeah,
better. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
In
yeah,
spite of, and like, I've been just, overwhelmed by, the response to the book, over these last 6 years, and all the students, or all the schools, all the colleges, I've been able to just touch and, you
yeah,
know, interface with, and, hearing so many young people talk about, I'm going through this now, and I did, this
yeah,
gave me
yeah.
strength. You know what I'm saying? So it's been beautiful, man. It's just something I can't even describe how proud I am of that. You know what I
No,
mean?
thank you, brother. Thank you so much for that book, man. And everybody who's watching this, you guys, please get this book. I know it's on most streaming platforms. I know it's like
Yeah,
on
yeah.
Amazon, but
Amazon,
get you
iBooks, all that.
yeah,
Yeah, check
get
it
that,
out.
man. It's a great read. It's
Yeah, and I
definitely
think I'm gonna do an audio book. I'm trying to. The book came out on July 31st, 2015.
mhm.
And my co-author Kevin Reed's been talking. He keeps saying, "Man, do the audio book, TL."
Oh
So I
shit, I
think,
thought you had one. I thought the audiobook was
nah,
already out.
nah, nah.
Oh man.
So I'm gonna try to.
I would have thought you had one for this.
Yeah, man, I
Yeah.
should, but I think, though, that's what I'm gonna do soon. I've been meaning to do it.
Okay.
I was just talking to my man yesterday about, I mean, not yesterday, Friday, about booking some studio time, because I'm
Mm,
about to make sure I get that done. You know what I'm
no
saying?
doubt.
But yeah, it's and I ain't gonna lie, man. Like, I'm biased as hell, right? But Slug, a special book, man. Like, for real, I
It
didn't read
is. It
everything.
is.
Slug, a special book,
Yeah.
and my
Yeah.
my life is very unique. But this book deeper than just, like, it's not like your typical memoir. Like, what I mean,
Right.
you gonna learn something. You're gonna be inspired. You're gonna be empowered. It's gonna hit you. Like, I don't care. I'm talking about the whole range of people. You can name
Yeah.
somebody,
Yeah.
and when they read
It
this,
covers a
man,
lot.
it touches. Yeah,
It
for
covers a
sure.
lot. It reminds
Yeah,
me when I was a kid, it was this book I read when I was probably like 14, 15 called Makes Me Want to Holler by Nathan McCall.
yeah, Nathan McCall. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
And
that's a compliment. I appreciate that. Yeah,
yeah. So
that's a
I
classic
hear
book, man.
when I hear, I talk to a lot of young kids, man, and when I hear them talk about that book, it's the same response that I had when I read that book. You know what I'm
Yeah, how
saying?
about that?
So
Yeah,
yeah,
wow.
man. So
Yeah, that's real,
it's
bro. And when you
yeah.
them youngers be like, man, on page this you said, I'm
Yeah, and that's what I'm
like, they
talking. Like
really read joint,
they
like
be
they
telling me
really
like, yeah,
read.
you remember this? Did you read this right here? And you read this right here? And I'm
Man,
like,
they
damn, they
really
are
reading that
really
junk.
reading
They
the
really reading
book.
that junk. And these
Yeah,
kids, people be saying don't read. You feel what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
yeah, but they'll read something about them,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, they'll read something that grab them. Like, when they reading that,
Hmm.
and then but it's also kids in Chicago, kids in Miami, kids in New
Yeah,
Orleans, New York City, wherever I've been
no
around,
doubt,
So again, man, that's yeah, I'm super proud of
no
Slug, and then
doubt.
subsequently I did a life guide too, so it's like a where youngers get an opportunity to sort of almost write their own book,
Okay,
and then, yeah, from like a social emotional learning standpoint, it's really really cool to watch that part of it too. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm
okay.
grateful. I'm grateful.
Let's fast forward. So I want to save this. I saved this for, I don't want to I don't want to wrap you up too much longer, man. But we gotta finally talk about the free Tony Lewis Senior movement. I want to know, like, and this is my question I have before I even go continue. Like, how has it been? Like, with your father being incarcerated for 32 years, like, how have you not allowed his incarceration to prevent you from having a relationship with him? Because I know it has been strained. And, when did you realize, like, what? I need to start advocating for this. I need to really start advocating for this, because this is something that affects me directly,
Yeah. I mean, man, first of all, like, just like I was alluding to earlier, like, our relationship, the prison can sever the most sacred bonds, man. You know what I mean? I'm talking about across the board. And so I'm grateful to God that we've been able to maintain the relationship that we have. But
Right.
it's taking, we got to fight every day to maintain, that bond in this very unnatural situation. But with that being said, it's like, you know, the free Tony Lewis piece. I mean, we talked about the Cornell Jones American Gangsters that happened in '08. I got a free Tony Lewis T-shirt on then. So this ain't,
Yeah.
it was
I
back
need
in
I
the
need I
constant.
need to grab one of those. I need to
Yeah,
get
for
one of
sure.
those. But
Yeah, but the whole that was 13 years ago.
hmm
The whole point has always been that, not my dad, no political prisoner, or my father was innocent, right? But that the time his sentence outweighs his crime. You know what I mean? There's no way he should be sentenced to death, basically, right? Life without parole, I mean, he has to die in prison. There's no way, right? So so at this point, 32 years in, we had the new administration coming in. I just felt like the time was right for us to intensify, because we've been pushing this forever, but to intensify it, we did this amazing rally on April 10th. That so many
I was
people
there.
showed up for. It was
I was there.
incredible,
Yeah.
mind blowing in terms of the support. To really say it was not just me, but it's a community of people, right? That will be here to receive him and support his reentry. He's not a risk to public safety at all. He actually be an asset coming back to the community, and we've demonstrated that. Because in terms of all the work that we've done over the last 15 years, to help other inmates, to help their families, going
Right.
inside, doing anti-violence PSAs, like all this stuff, all this redemptive and restorative work that we've done to show not only his rehabilitation, but really like the impact he and I can have together in making DC a safer place. And so at this point, man, it's just time we feel for him to come home. But at the
So,
same time, not just him, but it's tens of thousands of American families all across this country that's in a similar situation where their family members are victims of war and drugs, and they need to be reunited. They didn't pay their
no
debt to
doubt.
society.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It ain't a get out of jail free card. They didn't pay
Right.
their debt. Come on,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
32 years for a nonviolent offense. Somebody who ain't never been to prison before that. Somebody who went to
Mm.
prison at 26 years old. You know what I'm saying? That's another thing. I'm 41 now. My father was 26 years old when he went to prison, man.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
was 26. You know what I'm saying? And he
So,
been he been locked.
what I find funny about that, not funny, but what I find very ironic about your father's his case, and that whole entire situation, because it's I'm not going to say almost, but the government played a part as far as funding the
Yeah,
the,
we
the,
we
the
we, we
war,
know that.
this so-called war on
Yeah.
drugs. It's almost like you want to give me give me the guns and drugs to sell,
Yeah.
and then you're going to hold me liable for something that you brought into the country. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, for a
Yeah.
26-year-old, whatever he did was for this little period of time. We talk
Exactly.
about maybe 4 or 5 years. I don't know, but
But
he
it
should
don't.
have
I
to
mean, I'm
pay
just
for the
saying.
rest of
I
his
mean,
life for that.
32 years not enough.
That's
Exactly.
not.
And then those players, those people, ain't none of them get held accountable. All the cocaine and the drugs that was coming in this country, we know that
Exactly.
the role to go. We know that. That's not even like innuendo at this point, right? And
Exactly.
so the whole point is like, and even these mandatory minimums, these they politicize a lot of this stuff that people trying to stay in office, and our president was somebody who was, one of the architects of a lot of these, the 1986 crime bill, the 94 crime bill. And so it's like, that's why I felt like it was time. Not to mention, too, my father is the only person that's still incarcerated or still serving time on their case for their
talk
case.
about that, because it was like, from what I've read, I believe it was like 29. It was a 29 people conspiracy, and out of those 29 people, I think like 27 of those people have been released. One of them is I believe it's got a sentence reduction.
There you go.
And your father's the only one. Like, why do you think they making it so hard for him? Do you think it's personal? Like, what's the deal with this entire situation? Because it's weird to me. I don't get it.
I don't know. I mean, I think what it all boils down to is, he was considered a partner. So in the conspiracy, right? Not somebody who was so he was held. They say he was equally culpable for the conspiracy. The other 27 people worked for the head of the conspiracy, basically. And then the person who was the quote unquote head of the conspiracy became, he the one who got the sentence reduction. He got, because of his cooperation with the government. So I mean, that's pretty much where we are. That's our reality, and it's a lot of reforms that's been passed, but a lot of it's up to the what they call judicial discretion. So it's up to the judge, and so hopefully the judges see things more favorably this time. We just filed a motion for sentence reduction. I'm asking everybody to keep prayers up, and then if not that, then hopefully clemency. The Biden administration did say they're going to do a clemency program in 2022. So I'm hopeful. I'm more hopeful now than I think I've been. And again, it's just time. Even without all the restorative things my dad had done and all that, 32 years, man. Like, what else you want?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Think about that. And I think sometimes the relationship that we have, and I think it's easy for people to sort of like forget or they don't get the impact of that. Like, when I say you've been in prison 32 years, I want people to really ask you, like, do you know anybody been locked up 32 years? Like, really, when you really think about it, like, have you?
He's been locked up. He's been locked up more than half his life. Like, a lot of people, I don't think we realize how young he was, and like he was only 24, 25 years old.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
He was 26. Yeah,
that's young, man.
He's still been in jail. He's been in jail 6 more. He just spent 6 more years in jail than he spent in freedom. You know what I'm saying? Like, for real.
And I don't believe, and I know for a fact his impact, whatever they may think or thought it was not worthy of 32 years. It's not worthy of 32 years.
You got, again, in my work, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, I've dealt with people that, done the most egregious crimes you could imagine, and they've been in my office. You know what I'm saying?
Some very heinous shit. Yeah.
So how does being a drug dealer trump, how does that become like the apex crime? You know what I mean? I think, again, and this is not just about my father, but just in general as a society, I think we really got to ask ourselves that question. You know what I'm saying? Like that.
Like, when my thing is, like, when does America pay for the crimes that they committed? You know what I'm saying? Like, when do you go turn the mirror around and look at yourself and realize, like, what role did you play in this? Because we have a lot of young African Americans around that time are still incarcerated for the same thing. Like, it's not, like you said, it's not just about your father, but a lot of those bills that was passed back then, the lingering effects is very prevalent on our community today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like, in terms of rectifying a lot of that stuff, if we people went on record saying you got it wrong, even the president, okay, well, now get it right. Yeah. If you admit you get, and there shouldn't be no long drawn out process or
make it happen.
Make it happen. Unlock the doors. The people who have paid their debt to society, man. Get them people another opportunity. You know what I mean? Should nobody be getting no life without parole? And they've even had more conversations around ending the death penalty. So, like, if you take away the federal death penalty, what sentence you think those people gonna have?
Life
without parole.
Life without parole.
So you telling me that somebody who sold drugs, that's the equivalent of somebody who was on death row? You gotta really think. You see what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't even make sense. But when it's us, right, it makes sense, right? When there's
Yeah,
black
yeah,
people, poor
yeah,
black
yeah.
people, it makes sense. So, but again, this again,
Disenfranchised.
yeah, that's why the work
Yeah,
continues though. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
I mean, at the end of
yeah,
the day, the work continues. I'm not going rest until pops come home, man. I can't accept that him,
yeah,
God
yeah,
forbid, what I mean, but he would pass in prison. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, man.
yeah, yeah.
For what?
Nah,
You don't
nah,
deserve
man.
that.
I
You know what I
salute you
mean?
for that for that right there alone, brother. I mean, I just know, there has to be, a weight that's very heavy on your shoulders, man. But like everything else, man, it seemed like, man, you seem to, keep pushing, man. It's you very unique, man, in the way to how do you deal with a lot, man. I don't think a lot of people realize and understand how many hats you're wearing.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they do either, man. But I feel like the creator, he don't give us no more than what we can bear,
Yeah, right,
but
right.
I appreciate you acknowledging that though, man, because like it is a lot. I ain't going,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? It's a lot. It's a
Yeah,
lot,
yeah,
man. There's a lot. But uh, you know, the when you see that what you're doing is impacting people's lives, man, it make it worth it. You know what
that's
I'm
the
saying?
incentive.
Or when you share what you share with me, but like with bro, like stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Take that, take that lightly, man. You know what I'm
no
saying? So,
doubt, no doubt.
yeah,
Well,
and it
look,
ain't me,
before,
it's them.
yeah,
But
yeah,
you just sometimes, but you gotta cut the light on in people sometimes. You feel what I'm saying?
mm-hmm.
You talk about holding the mirror. Sometimes it's just that's what I do. I'm just
Yeah.
holding the mirror to yourself. Like, look at you, you great. You
Now that's a
already gonna
fact.
be great. You hear me? Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. Well, look, before we get out of here, I want to mention, like, I know that you have a relation with a lot of rappers such as, like Wale, Pusha T. And, what would you say to a lot of people that will blame a lot of the ills within our community on the hip hop, on hip hop culture? I've been hearing a little pushback, well, a lot of pushback on that lately. And I know you have some interesting things to say about that. So can
I
you
do.
expound a little bit on that?
I just they wouldn't if it ain't exist in reality, they couldn't rap about it. You know what I'm saying? They ain't making it up. They ain't making up the world. The world we live in. Now, yeah, some people, glorify things that I feel like they shouldn't. But
Right.
at the reality of it is that that's people's reality. And
Mm,
so, like any art, we don't hold movie makers to the same, aesthetic. We don't, you know what I'm saying, the same standard. We don't hold,
yeah.
you know what I'm saying, with TV shows, and they do the same thing. They show even the news,
Right.
right? Even the
Yeah.
news.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
why can't they have artistic freedom to talk about the things that they see or things that they going through?
Right.
At the same time, yeah, it's some more responsibility. Like they shouldn't. I don't believe in exploitation, on no level, right?
Hmm.
But I think it's unfair to hold rappers. Like again, when you look at what was going on in this town, maybe say like my father and them or whatever they was into, right? They was into
Right.
Anita Baker and Keith
Yeah. Yeah.
Sweat and
Yeah.
Luther.
Yeah.
You know what
Exactly.
I mean?
See, whether hip hop was,
You
again, because even the generation, like you said, the generation before your father was Cornell Jones, and that's the
yeah,
'70s. So we
exactly.
talking about the OJs
Yeah,
and disco and
OJ
shit.
is into yeah, exactly. So
So
we
it
can
was
come.
gonna happen.
What's still the same. The
Yeah.
socioeconomic situation was still the same with all of them.
Yeah.
And it
Exactly.
is the same today. You feel what I'm saying? So
That's
like
the common
that, come
denominator.
on. And that's the part people
Yeah.
don't want to be real about. So
That's a
miss
fact.
me about the
That's a
music and
fact.
all that. Now
Yeah.
again, the music always has had a way. Pop culture is America, right? It's always had a
Right.
way of being influential and making certain things cool and blah blah blah.
Hmm.
But the drugs and the guns and all that, that's
Yeah.
there. If
Yeah.
I couldn't walk out my door and see it, then it wouldn't have such an impact. But it's already there. It's already there. The,
What they
the, the
say,
rapper done put it there. You know what I'm saying?
this what they say, art imitates life,
Yeah. Art imitates life for
and
real.
vice versa.
And vice versa. And sometimes the lines get blurred, right? I'm a
Right.
realist, but I think it's incredibly unfair to put all that responsibility at the feet of and also of typically young men that come from the same. Like it's not like if I'm talented, That don't mean that I don't need no guidance. And a lot of times that's what my relationship with these guys have been about. Trying to build, they, consult with me and we talking, like, trying to give them something that they didn't have either. They just got a talent. That don't mean that they should be the spokespeople for our community.
I was just about
they don't
to
need nobody to, teach them nothing.
Right. It's just unfortunate because we have so few leaders such as yourself that sometimes, man, this is what they left with. They left with these guys, man, and these guys, and I heard you mention this in an interview one time, but these guys have a huge platform and a voice, so the youth, they gonna gravitate towards that.
Yeah, sure, and they can start rapping about kumbaya and peace, but if that youngin', if it's still a war in his community, the rapper ain't. That's what some people act like. So they stop rapping about that stuff. That changed the dynamic.
Because even when we was younger, like I said, we the same age. But I remember when we was younger, we had the Public Enemy. We had poor righteous teachers. But that was the worst. That was the worst time. Worst time.
So stop. So stop with
nobody
that.
Want to talk about that.
That's why I can't hear that. That's why I can't hear that. Like, I'm not, come on, man. Ain't nobody trying. It's not that simple. You know what I'm saying? It's not that simple. I would like an opportunity, hopefully, to even, just have some sit downs with some of more of these rap dudes and just talk to them. Not even like to be, what I mean? Because again, that's not my reality. I'm not like, it's got to, it's about them giving them some space to grow and learn and evolve. You got youngers coming straight out of the trenches. They get a hit record. So all of a sudden,
you think they gonna just change like that?
Yeah, that's why I really got a lot of respect for the young and Lil Baby, and some of the records that he done made and what he doing. You know what I'm saying? Like
even a young boy out here, I just met him recently, man. No Savage.
Yeah.
And you can say, people can say this, that, and but I've met the young brother. The brother got a good head on his shoulders, man. Like I'm real live, like. I'm telling you, like for him to be a young brother, you know what I'm saying, and coming from where he come from, I still see the room for growth. We can't just just penalize these brothers as if like this is who they gonna be for the rest of their life.
Youngins, man, you gotta get again. They
give them a chance to grow.
You gotta give them a chance to grow and evolve, and hopefully they don't crash before. They get a chance to really fully blossom. And that just be my thing, what I'm saying, with a lot of them, especially a lot of the little youngers here, for the first time, for real, this rap thing real for them. Like, it really can change your life and the people around you. But like, a lot of this little community stuff that be going on, I hope they can navigate and circumvent that stuff, man, so that they can really, be who we want them to be. Right, you know what I'm saying? And again, the rap can bring a real economic pathway for so many of these neighborhoods and so many of these younger guys. They just gotta. I hope they can see themselves in each other and understand that you can't be. You know what I mean? We ain't the enemy, Holmes. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, man.
Look at Malcolm X, man. A lot of people, I mean, if we would have, we would have judged him by, what he was early in his career, you would have never had this, this icon.
I'm trying to tell you, there's a lot of us, man. You know what I'm saying? You got to give them, get them a chance. But they just, for real though, with these youngins though, one thing I get nervous about with them, is just everything go to the gun so fast, man, with these young dudes, man. In the framing of how they see themselves and how they see peace, like it's some sucker shit, or the value of life, and that kind of these distortions. You know what I'm saying? And then but I see them also. A lot of these guys, I see them if it's an unfortunate occurrence, and then I see them on the other side, and in prison or whatever. And then it ain't, it all makes sense then, but it's too late.
But you think a lot of that stems from just not having, like proper guidance, like having male figures in the home. Because I'm gonna be honest, like I work for Metro, and I talk with, when I deal with like a lot of the young brothers that will come on the bus and act simple or whatever, and
right.
I'm gonna be honest, I don't have a lot of, when I talk to them like young men and not trying to son them, or just, what I'm trying to say is, if you talk to these young brothers with respect and they see that you a man of respect and you coming at them genuine and sincere, my experience has, man, it's been a very productive experience. And I say that to say this, like a lot of times, you know, we don't have that in the households.
Yeah.
We don't have brothers. We don't have enough brothers like yourself in our community. So do you feel like if we had more of that, you know, you would see a lot of this behavior from a lot of the youth, and particularly the young boys, it would, you know, you wouldn't see that as much. A lot of the gunplay and stuff like that. What you think about
Yeah,
that?
yeah. I mean, I think, it ain't. I can't even put you know, a measurement on the importance of the presence of, fathers or productive, positive men. I think
Right,
I absolutely has an impact on behavior, on emotion, on trauma, all of those things
right,
that really those are really the things that really lead to a lot of the gun violence. At the same time, I think for some of our young men, it's important that some of them got people trying to talk to them. You know what I mean? They gotta listen though, right? So
right,
it
right.
go, that's important.
I ain't saying
You
all
gotta,
of them. Like, let me make this disclaimer one more time. Like, I'm not saying every young brother is willing to hear, but I'm just saying, like, for the most part, I notice.
no, oh, no.
Yeah,
No, I
go ahead.
totally agree with that. And to my point though, I'm actually making the same point that a lot of them, reachable. I mean, look, we talk. I, that's what I do.
Yeah,
But I,
I was
but I,
just about
but
to,
I,
I was just
but
about to
at
get
the
to that.
same, but at the same time, it's about um, you got to also be conditioned to listen, right? You understand? So if you ain't had nobody around to listen to, it's gonna be hard for you to just turn around as soon as somebody, a
Right,
positive brother,
right,
say
right,
something to you for you. You know what I'm saying?
right.
Because
Yeah,
you haven't had that, and you haven't had that your life, your whole life, and now you're a
yeah,
man,
yeah,
a young man, but you're a man now. This dude, talk, you know what I'm saying?
yeah,
And
yeah.
so yeah, it's really about you know people being able, and even but the whole tie into the whole conversation, this really has been the impact of all of these elongated prison sentences,
That's a
all
fact.
this premature death. So this is why these men aren't there to do that. You
Exactly.
know what I'm saying?
Right,
Because
right.
right. So yeah, man, I think but that's why I always try to tell people, please don't write these youngins off. Don't talk about they don't want. Don't. You can't say that because that's not true
Hmm.
for all of them. Some of them definitely will listen,
Yeah,
but also it's about I might see you one time, but what about what about who gonna be there consistently to pour into them?
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
And
And
that's
that's
why I
what I'm
just try to
saying. Like
make
when I
it
talk to
important.
him, like when I'm out here or whatever, out here in the streets or whatever, when I talk to him, the reception in my, in my space, it be positive for the most part. Now, what they do when they leave me, it's a
Yeah,
whole nother story.
sure.
But my thing is like you, I'm just trying to plant the seed, and hopefully,
That's all
I
we
can
can do.
say I can get one, I can reach one of them, and
Yeah,
you know, from my experience, and I'm not nowhere near the community activist that you are. Let's make that clear. But I've had young brothers that came back to me, have emailed me, have that I've given my number to, and said, man, thank you for saying certain,
yeah.
yeah.
But a
And
dude,
I get
and
that from
listen,
brothers like you, brothers
I
like you
want to drive
inspire
the
me.
bus or I want to drive this train or whatever. Like
Yeah.
again, man. Like I'm
I had a
saying, like
brother.
again.
I remember one time when I first got on with Metro, maybe this probably maybe my third year, and I remember I was at Minnesota Avenue Station, like right over there by Project Empowerment,
Yeah,
and I was just standing outside on my layover, and a young brother, just judging him by the way he looked, you would have never looked like he's the type of young brother to approach somebody, but he just came over and just saw me, just me in my uniform, was like, man, I appreciate you, for what you represent, and he was like, man, I never seen anything like nope. He said, I never seen anything like you as far as like how you deal with the passages and things. Cause I be
yeah,
talking to the young boys. Like I literally go out, I literally talk to them. You
yeah,
know what I'm saying?
yeah,
And
man.
so it was just something that was different from him. And I just say that to say this. I feel like a lot of us, we need more people like yourself as far as just reaching out and just, being able to talk to these young brothers and sisters, because their ears is open for the most part. We
Yeah.
may not be able to reach them all, but just knowing the work that you've put in, you are a testament to you a testament to that work being received. Let's put it like
Yeah,
that.
for sure. And my whole thing has been to not just talk to them, but also to have something for them, right? Like to set them on their way to be able to really pursue whatever career or business opportunity, You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Yeah, man, I think that's the way. And it's been so many people that really have, taken me up on that offer, if you will, and not look back. So we just gotta, again, we gotta be unrelenting. You know what I'm saying? We gotta love,
Right.
love this issue, these problems away. They our people, they us. I see
It's a
one of them
fact.
young niggas like you, me. So I ain't gonna never look at you crazy. You know what I'm saying? But because I'm trying to stop you from where I know you going though. That's the biggest thing. You know what I
Right.
mean? Because once you get there, whether it's the cemetery or prison, we can't do nothing for you.
Right.
You know
Right.
what I
Right.
mean? It's too
Yeah.
late.
Yeah.
So trying to avoid that. And I see a lot of these youngsters on the other side, and it'd be different. It'd be
Mm.
different. You know what I'm saying? It'd be different. And so like we don't want to see them in that situation because that's talent wasted. You know what I'm saying? Our
No doubt.
community, we need them to be the best that they can be. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
As a parent, my babies, they ain't gonna look up to me. My baby, I need my babies to look. You know what I'm saying? They gonna
Right.
look up to them. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? So
No, that's
yeah,
a
man,
fact.
it's that serious. You know what I'm saying? And I want my family, I want my friends, I want to live in a safe community, safe city. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Because and that's the thing too, because any of us can be a victim. When this madness be going on and this stuff is just becoming even more indiscriminate. You know what I'm saying? So
Mm.
it's like, you know, um, yeah, we got some work to do.
Yeah, man. Well, look, Tony, man, I appreciate you being on the platform. Before we go out of here,
Thanks for
man,
having me, man.
where could they find you at on social media? I know you got the petition going on, still
Yeah,
going on right now.
sure.
And
Go
website,
ahead.
merch, things of that
Yeah,
nature.
on all platforms, Mr. Tony Lewis Jr., Mr. Tony Lewis Jr., freetonylewis.com. You can sign a petition there. You can cop the merch. Um, yeah, man, just, I'm always doing something. Follow me,
Yeah.
keep up, pull up. You know what I mean? Shout out to my homegirl Angel. Her birthday was the other day, and
Okay.
her and I, check her out at the Spice Suite. But her and I, we got, we doing the DC or nothing. Um, we got a lot of stuff coming up, with the DC and Nothing brand.
Mm.
I'm excited about what we about to do. We working on something major, and if we can pull
Mm.
this off, man, it's gonna be a paradigm shift, particularly for those that are returning to the community from incarceration. So stay tuned for that.
Right.
Do as much we can to make
No
sure
doubt.
that people are seen as citizens, bro. Like and
Mm-hmm.
get their full rights restored and everything. Like I don't think there's
Right.
no real way for people to really do it the right way without having access to be able to work where they want, live where they
Right.
want,
Right.
have the same opportunity as everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And once you
Mm-hmm.
serve your debt, once you serve your time, you pay your debt to society. I think it's unfair for people to have to continue to be
No
basically
doubt.
discriminated against. You know what I'm saying? So yeah,
All right. All right. So when everything's said and done, man, what you want to be remembered for, Tony?
man, somebody that gave a fuck. You know what I'm saying? Like ultimately, like really somebody who cared about his people and did everything he could to
No
to
doubt.
support, his people, man. That's what I want my legacy to be.
No doubt. No doubt. Well, look, you have the one and only Tony Lewis Jr. Thank you. Thank you so much, brother, for stopping by. I cannot wait to just see more things that you have going on in this community. I'm glad the word is getting out, getting around about all your all the things that you have contributed to our community, man. Thank you so much, brother.
Thank you, brother. Peace and love, man. Take it easy.
You take care. Have a good night, bro.